Unlocking Creative Design Studio. This is the first ever interview in 2022. And thanks, Simon, to be my interviewee again, because I interviewed Simon in 2020 for his first venture, Optitude 360. But now we are going to talk about his another venture. So Simon, do you want to introduce Optitude OCC to everyone?
Yes, sure. Hi, my name's Simon Childs. I'm the managing director of two firms. My first firm that we spoke about, Mona, in 2020 was Optitude 360, Executive Search Psychology. Just over my shoulder there, you can see the logo at the back of my virtual office. But today I'm actually here to talk about my second venture, which is called Optitude OCC, or Outplacement and Career Coaching. We specialize in working with companies who have staff in transition. We help the staff that they have in transition to deal with redundancy and successfully find new roles. We reduce reputational risk. And, we provide a great service to those that we work with. What we do is we help people either step up or step out of the positions that they're in. We deal with a range of issues that people may have at work. One of the things that sets Optitude apart is that everything that we do revolves around psychology. We've got specialists that work within mindfulness. We have got specialists that work within things like psychometrics, and we've also got specialists that work within recruitment. So we help people to find their way back into the market. One thing actually, later this year, we're opening up an HR division too. So interesting times.
Yeah, cool. Well, it's nice to hear that your businesses are growing massively. Wow, great. Because I reckon you must be very busy, because loads of people lost their job, especially last year, the furlough scheme ended. So a lot of people are trying to find another job. Do you have any, could you provide any case studies? How do you help people during the pandemic? Yeah.
Well, I mean, in fairness, I started running Optitude OCC very early in the first pandemic. So in the first pandemic, I put together a methodology that I call Slingshot Horizon, which is about accelerated job search. By the end of late 2020, I'd picked up around about 14 clients. So I was working with a range of people. Out of the 14, 8 of those had come to me because they were unemployed and they were looking for new jobs. Some were still employed but were under threat of redundancy. Some had just been looking prior to the pandemic actually starting. The first thing that I do is I take a deep dive with the candidates that I work with. It's really, really important to understand what it is that makes them really, really good at doing what they do. What makes them great at work? What do they like? What do they dislike? What areas do they feel that they could improve in? I then look at a range of other factors, everything from relationship factors to financial factors, to the goals that they've got set. Because particularly if they're looking for a new job and they're looking to get success, sometimes I've come across people that have some really large problems that they're dealing with. So for example, if someone said to me, I'm changing job and I'm also getting divorced, that's probably not the best time to look to change job, But so the first thing I did was a deep dive with individuals. The second thing that I would do is I would take a look at their CVs. So 26 years into recruitment, you get to know what works. So I work with people to draw their CV out of them. Stage 3 is usually some kind of psychometric assessment. So I tend to use the judgment index, but I also use a wide range of tools like the sort of big 5 personality traits. These things have proved to be really, really useful for helping people to understand things that can be improved about themselves, how we can help them to progress quicker at work. The third stage, we look at the market. We teach people how to approach the market properly. So what do I mean by that? I'm talking about, what do you do with your CV? Do you use cover letters? Do you not use cover letters? Do you use value propositions? What do you do with them? You know, how do you work with job sites? We answer questions like, what are the best times to look for jobs during the day? You know, how are you going to get the biggest bang for your buck when you're dealing with recruiters? One of the things that we pride ourselves on, we've been able to help people get in front of clients much quicker, much easier by having not only the right CV and the right mental attitude, but also the right approach to market. When we've covered that off, the final thing that we tend to look at is really about interviewing, because it's all very well doing a load of work and a load of research, and you've gone to your recruiter and you know, they've liked your CV and they've got you in front of a client. But as we say, when the curtain goes up, it's really important to come across well at interview. It's really important to ask the right questions at the end of your interview. It's really important to answer questions in the most appropriate way so that you're succinct, but also you get the message across. You know, we teach people how to research companies, how to relax before their interview, how to answer questions so that, you know, they can be sure that they've given the best presentation of themselves that they possibly can. In a nutshell, these are some of the things that we do when we work one-to-one with individuals when we're career coaching at Optitude OCC. Clearly, with our outplacement services, that's a slightly different story. And again, it's more about working very closely with clients to understand the situations that their people are going through and then tackling them extremely sensitively.
Okay, thanks. Very straightforward. And I'm very impressed that you explained all the work in progress, how your process while working with the clients to make sure they can get the best result. But I got a question.
Of course.
Because I always think that job interview is not totally fair. It's really hard to see someone's true color and their capability within an hour, within such a short period of time. For instance, because I'm not looking for a job now, but I was always very nervous at the job interviews. So even though I answered all the questions properly, but you couldn't see my true personality. So do you have any advice?
I do.
For people who have the same situation?
Yeah, I mean, you know, look, my speciality is interviewing. About 17 years ago, I got into something called attitudinal based selection. So I don't necessarily go with the typical competency model that lots of companies go with, because I believe that things like skills and competencies can be trained. What I'm more interested in is the underlying attitudes that people have that make them really good at doing the things that they do. Or if I put it more generally, what is it that makes this person fantastic at being an employee or working or being a CEO or being a leader, being a finance director? What is it about their attitude that allows them to communicate with a company, cascade their message throughout the company, get everybody on the same page, and then have people follow them even when times are difficult? These are the sort of things that we help to bring to the surface in Optitude, be it in 360 or in OCC. Coming back to your original question, prior to an interview, it's really important to be prepared for your interview. I'm going to give a few simple tips about interviewing, you know, because I've seen candidates make all sorts of mistakes. it's always a huge error of judgment to, be panicked about the time that you're going to arrive for interview. So this is a really simple one. Make sure that you arrive about 10 or 15 minutes early. Anything more, and you'll find that your stress levels will build up, particularly if you've got the typical kind of self-talk going around your head. So, what I get people to do, or what I would suggest people do prior to interviews, do your research on the company, understand what it is that they're into, check the company out, look on LinkedIn, find out what sort of people work there, look at your Glassdoors of this world, look at the website Glassdoor, see if you're connected to anybody, and don't be scared to ask people that you're linked with who might work at this company what it's like. I'm considering a role with the company. I just wondered, I'd really like to just get like an insight. It's really, really difficult when we go into an interview situation because it's really quite unnatural. You mentioned that it's hard to really get to know someone in, say, an hour's interview. Admittedly, it is. The interesting thing about human beings is that we make judgments about people really quickly, be them right or wrong. So, for example, there is a thing called the halo and horns effect in psychology. This is our propensity as human beings to, if we meet someone and there's something about that person that we immediately like, then the chances are we'll start to look for references that back up our feeling that this person's like us or we like them. And this can be really bad at interview because, you could end up picking someone who's completely inappropriate, but at the time of interview, you felt you got along with them. And it can also go the other way. It's called the horns effect. You meet someone and you sort of think, I don't like them. How quickly can I end this interview? And on that basis, again, mistakes can be made. The person might have been the best one for the job, but because whatever it was, whatever made you feel, I'm not sure about this person, you will look for references to back it up. What do you do as a candidate? The best thing that you can do is rehearse your introductions. When you go for interview, be confident. Look people in the eyes, shake their hands. If you're on Zoom, be smart when you're interviewing. Don't just sort of stick whatever you're going to wear on. Be practiced. If you're having Zoom interviews, make sure that you've got notes about the company set out in front of you. If you're on a face-to-face interview, I encourage people to take an executive summary as well as their CV into the room with them so that they can literally put them down on the table in front of them. And if they're asked difficult questions, they can briefly refer back. Prior to the interview, take 10 or 15 minutes to try and relax. Clear your mind. One of the worst things that most people tell me they find is negative self-talk. Because like Captain Paranoia that lives in the back of our minds and speaks to many of us will be saying things like, you're going to fail this. This isn't going to work. You're not going to do it. When I get in there, what if I mess up? If they offer me a drink, I better not take it because I might spill it. And it's true, any of these things could happen. But the simple thing is, prior to the interview, don't drink coffee before your interview because it will make you hyper. Some people think, well, actually, I need a hit before I go and do this. That's just the weakness coming out in us. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You need the mental strength to be able to go in and face these people, because if you haven't got it, I guarantee that you will be drinking coffees every day before you go into that firm. So find a way to do it yourself. That's number one. When you meet people, like I said, be smart. If it's face to face, just follow the customs of the firm. Do your checking on the firm, research the firm. we haven't really got the time to go into specifics, but when it comes to things like answering interview questions, how are you going to lead, manage, and motivate when money isn't on the table? Think about the times when you've worked with difficult people and how you've handled it. On the subject of difficult people, companies generally want to know about how we hold ourselves in front of senior professionals. Only you as a candidate can decide how you're going to come across an interview. My advice to you is rehearse in a mirror. Rehearse answering interview questions in a mirror. Look at your facial expressions. Are you sort of like kind of going like this, when you're sitting there, or someone asks you a question and you suddenly find that your hands immediately go to your face? In an interview, probably, I'm just thinking about all of the things that I've seen over the years. Probably the best thing that you can do is sit back, relax, and listen super carefully to the questions that you're being asked. You would be amazed at how many people I've seen who walk into interview. I'll ask a question. Talk me through your reasons for leaving your current role. And someone will answer a completely different question. And it's not malicious. It's not that they're deliberately not wanting to answer my question sometimes. It's simply that they are scared, because this is an unnatural situation. So all I can say, and I hope this answers your question to some degree, Mona, is practice, 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 practice in front of the mirror. Look at your expressions, think about your tone, think about some of the things that have happened to you in the past, think about how you've dealt with difficult situations. And I think if you've done your research and you go in and you're honest, because if you're not honest, it will come out in your body language. An experienced interviewer will pick it up. Be honest with people and enjoy it, because you've worked really hard to get to that interview in the first place.
Yeah, thanks very much. Well, very helpful. I'm not looking for a job now, but your tips will definitely help me in terms of talking to the prospects. So I believe those tips will help me to increase my chances of closing the deals. Thanks, Simon. Also, could I ask you a question about CVs?
Yeah, sure.
That companies, they all use kind of software or apps to filter out the CVs. For instance, if your CV doesn't include certain keywords, your CV won't be selected. Also, if your CV is over 1 page, your CV will be deleted either. Is it true? So
Okay.
any tips on writing
I'm
CV?
going to, sorry, Mona, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm going to try and clear up a few kind of urban myths here about CVs. Look, I want to just put a few things out there right now. Firstly, there is an old wives' tale that says that CVs can only be 1 page long. Look, the reality of this is I've seen, there are some CVs that I've seen that have been 13 pages long. You've worked in the industry and you've seen as many CVs, I guess, as someone like myself has. Like I said, you get to know what works. So I'm going to share a few tips about CVs. So the first one, look, to me, a 3 to 4 page CV is perfectly acceptable. Not everyone's going to see it that way, but hey, we're humans. When we're flawed, I'm not saying I'm perfect. Everyone's going to have their own view. But to me, a 3 to 4 page CV is perfectly acceptable. In terms of the content of that CV, this is where the rubber meets the road. If the CV interests me right off the bat, then that's a CV that will go through. A lot these days is made of applicant tracking systems and these so-called AI that picks out keywords in CVs. Okay, let's talk about the reality of this. There might be some large companies out there that are inundated with CVs that use these sort of like applicant tracking systems that are parsing CVs, and then, you know, like search words will be, you know, there'll be a search for keywords. I'll give you that. But actually, I would argue that the vast majority of CVs still are actually looked at by human eyes. Certainly at Optitude, we will eyeball every single CV that comes through. When it comes to writing your CV, I'm going to give a golden rule away here. The biggest mistake that candidates make is that they don't read job adverts if you're applying via a recruiter. The biggest mistake that you can make is to send out copper plate CVs to recruiters. If you do that, the chances are that your CV will be ignored. You need to address the advert that's been written by the recruiter. I'll just give you a couple of things that might be helpful for those that apply for jobs. Read the advert carefully. Look at what they're saying and apply it to your CV. The most important part of your CV is probably the profile, because when recruiters are going to be looking at your CV, you'll have about 7 seconds. That's the attention span of most recruiters and most employers, particularly when they've got hundreds of CVs to go through. Does that sort of thing make sense, Mona?
Yeah. Thanks.
There's a few tips there that I think will, I'd really like to think will help some people out there.
Yeah, true. Thanks. And you clear out the urban myth as well.
And the urban myth about the amount of pages. Look, hey, I want to be clear with people on this. I'm sort of being a little bit flippant about this. To me, a 3 to 4 page CV is fine.
Yeah.
Spelling mistakes in CVs is another one that I hear very often.
Yeah, sure.
Really simple, really simple these days. Don't do it. Just don't do it. Use Grammarly. It's free.
Yeah, I love Grammarly. Yeah.
Yeah, just get on. Use Grammarly.
Not perfect, but it does the
Yeah,
job. Yeah.
get someone to proofread your CV for you.
Yeah, thanks. Those things are the basics. Because if I need to employ someone, I wouldn't use someone who got typos or misspelling on the CVs. And also another question, yeah. Because in some industries, if you don't have job experience, if you don't have work experience, you can never get into that industry. For instance, like my industry, the creative industry, you probably need to do an internship or apprenticeship first to get work experience in order to step into that industry. But unfortunately, if you are doing the apprenticeship or internship, you don't get paid very well. So not everyone can afford doing that. So a lot of people, they are probably very well educated, they got a degree, but they ended up doing something they don't really like for the rest of their career. So in that case, do you have any advice how to get into your industry quicker?
Firstly, let me just differentiate between the internship and the apprenticeship. So an internship, particularly in something like your own role, Mona, you know, you work within the creative industry. There are some industries like the film industry, graphic design, music, advertising. These industries have notoriously high barriers to entry. Now, you know, aside from natural talent, which you're going to need for the thing that you want to do. So let's say you're a filmmaker and you've set out to be the best filmmaker that you can possibly be, and you've got some great ideas. Fantastic. You'd need to go for an internship with a lot of companies that probably won't pay you. They'll quite often pay expenses. There are some schemes where they might pay you a set amount for the internship, but generally, in my experience, internships will last anywhere between, say, a month to about, well, I have known them to go on for about 6 months. Just to be real, quite often the people that work on internships don't actually get to do the meaty things that they really want to do. You know, they might work around the company, but they might do things like data entry. They might be a runner. They might be going and getting bagels for someone in Soho in the creative industry, you know, because they're so desperate to work in films. And that's great, because the thing is, I think, with some of these industries, these are the things that people have gone through, and there will be a cohort before them and before them, which the chances are have probably done the same thing. So this isn't really my area of expertise, but all I can say is make direct approaches if you want to, you know, be an intern. Think about what you've done so far and how you're going to add value to the company that you're working for. Hard work alone and the fact that you're a nice person is not going to cut it. You're going to need to offer that company some kind of value because of your contribution. Now, that's something you're going to have to work out. And again, I come back to this notion of research. If you know what the company is into, then I'm confident that you will be able to find something that's going to be of interest and will spark their interest when you meet them or when you approach them. That's an internship. With the apprenticeships, in the old days, to me, an apprenticeship was all about working for a trade, like plumbing, gas fitting, electricity. I don't know. You know, you're a blacksmith. I don't know, a dental technician.
Catering as well.
Yeah, catering. You know, these days, I think there is a much wider. You know, what is an apprenticeship has become like a much more undefined kind of wide area. In apprenticeships, you would expect to earn a reasonable salary, so at very worst minimum wage, and you know it's contractual. Obviously, an internship, you're only going to be there for a limited amount of time, but when you take on an apprenticeship, that is a different beast entirely. And you know, anyone who's interested in this sort of thing, I'd have to direct them to the government websites.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks very much to clarify this too, because they are quite confusing.
Yeah, sure.
And also, can we talk about a bit more about the creative industry as well? Because I'm in the creative industry, and you're a very good photographer.
Thank you.
You're very creative as well. So, because how is the job market looks like in the creative industry in 2022?
Okay.
Because the economy doesn't look too great in 2022.
Sure.
Yeah, because a lot of things are happening around the world. Yeah.
It's really interesting. You know, I am asked similar questions by all sorts of people in all sorts of industries.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't mean to give, I don't want to give a standard answer, but I'm gonna give the sort of answer that I would say to anyone. You know, it doesn't matter whether you work within the creative industry, it doesn't matter whether you work within the film industry, it doesn't matter if you're a fisherman in Cornwall, it doesn't matter if you're a recruiter in the city. You know, ultimately your success or failure is going to come down to you. All right. And, you know, because what do I mean by this? Yes, bad things happen in the world. Right now, there's an awful war going on. There are, you know, we've had Brexit, and I've heard people saying, oh my God, but if it wasn't for Brexit, and I don't want to get into that whole can of worms, but whatever. My point is, whatever happens in the world, you won't be judged. You will be judged by your reaction to it. So, you know, I've met salespeople who have said things like, oh, well, I never sell on a Friday because actually, everyone's sort of kind of gone home and it's the end of the week. They don't want to talk about sales. And I've also heard people, this is just an example, say things like, well, I don't want to sell on a Monday because, everyone's just come back to work after the weekend. We are fantastic as human beings at making excuses for ourselves. Okay. There are some human beings that don't believe the hype. Okay. And I'm not saying that some industries aren't harder than others. Yeah, that is true. Sadly, that's true. But what you tend to find is in the more challenging industries, in the creative industries, in some of the markets that might be dying out, I tend to find that the people that survive become tougher. They become more resilient. This is kind of like a natural selection taking place. Those that can pivot in their roles or change the way that they do certain things are usually the people that will survive. The strong will survive no matter what the market conditions are like. And where does that strength exist? It exists in our own minds. That's where it exists. This isn't about, oh, well, I'm going to blame it on the climate. Oh, I'm going to blame it on whatever there's a war on. I'm not going to blame it on the political party that happen to be in power right now. There are some things that can limit people, but in my mind, I like to be positive. I think that we all have a choice about the way that we think and about the way that we deal with difficulties as they arrive. We can deal with them positively, and we can deal with them constructively, or we can deal with them negatively and go to pieces. The choice is ours. So when people say to me, oh, but it's really tough for creatives, not all creatives will be saying that. There'll be some people that are saying, do you know what, it's fantastic. Do you know what, I'm just going to work that much. I'm going to try my hardest to go out and get the same amount of work that I was before when the market was easier. And I think that sort of argument could probably be applied to everything.
Yes, very true. Thanks very much. I believe that the mindset is the most important thing.
Sorry, this is it. I'm so excited by these sort of things. It is about the mindset that we have when we approach difficulty. It's important, particularly in these difficult times, because let's face it, guys, we've been through COVID, we've been through a pandemic, we've lost loved ones. We've terrible things happening around us. I'm not saying for a minute that people should be unemotional, Ultimately, though, you do need to be resilient. You need to work on your mindset. And, so the simple message is, if you look for the negative in the world, you'll find it. If you look for the positive in the world, you'll also find it. So I'll tell you which one I'm going to look for. I'm going to look for the positive in the world, and I'm going to do my level best to find it.
Yeah, sure. Just one positive thing you can think, because the pandemic has speeded up this kind of online platform. So now we are all connected to the whole world.
Absolutely. I mean, if anything, I think that the pandemic was terrible, without a shadow of a doubt. But on the other hand, I think it's also changed the face of work. Companies aren't behaving the way that they used to. Many companies have realized that a hybrid model is a smarter idea than having employees in expensive offices all of the time. I think that business, since everybody's been online, I found with my business that my business has now gone global. So now I'm dealing with individuals in North America and Europe and what have you, because the world is a much It's almost like for all of the negative things that have happened, I feel that some really positive things have come along. One of the mantras that we've had at Optitude is, why don't we all just be a little bit kinder? Why don't we all just try and be a little bit more empathetic in this world, rather than, it's not all about the cut and thrust of business. These days, it feels like with the things that are happening in the world, we need to build a natural resilience, and we also need to build a natural positive mindfulness, not only of ourselves, but also around others.
Yeah, sure. And we should feel grateful as well. At least we got a comfortable home, we got food and a safe environment.
Absolutely.
Those are luxuries for a lot of people now.
Absolutely. We should have this attitude of gratitude, as they put it. It's interesting how many people that I've been talking to online who actually celebrate the fact that they feel grateful. They're grateful for the things that they've got.
Yeah, sure. I agree. Also, finally, could you sum up our interview today and give job hunters a few tips for 2022?
Absolutely, I'll do my best. Look,
Sure.
one of the biggest tips that I've got for job hunters applying for jobs, I know I'm going to say it again, read the adverts. Look at the advert carefully, break it down, ask yourself, what are they asking for here? And then simply feed it back in your CV. Don't take a scattergun approach when it comes to sending your CVs forward to either companies or to recruiters. And, you follow up, really, really simple. You've got to keep on going, and you've got to keep on being positive, no matter what happens. It doesn't matter if you go in and an interview doesn't work out. Okay. Hey, que sera. What you do, you pick yourself up again. You know that you've got an interview coming. Prepare. Preparation is everything.
Okay. Thanks very much. And I would like to give a summary as well, because I'm not a job hunter, but being a business owner, I found your tips today can totally work on my business. For instance, I can use these techniques on how to pitch myself in front of the prospects, how to listen and communicate with your clients, take briefs, and answer their questions properly and give them the best guidance. So those tips will help my business as well.
It's very true, Mona, because really, when you're at a job interview, you are selling the most important product that you own.
Yeah.
And that's yourself, And if you can't sell yourself, no one else is going to sell you for you, if that makes sense. Only you can be in that interview at that particular moment. Final tip for job hunters: have some questions prepared for the client. And one final thing that I think sometimes people forget, it's not all about the company that you're interviewing with. You should never forget that. This is your life. This is your future that you've now got in your hands, and you're about to put into this company's hands. And what that company are going to do with you and your future, hey, you want to be sure that you go to the right company, because I can assure you, when you go to the wrong company, it's a living hell.
Yeah, true. Thanks for today.
Thank you. Okay,
the real final. Do you want to promote your Clubhouse sessions?
Yeah, absolutely. I run a couple of rooms in Clubhouse. One of them is in a room called the Marketing Cafe. So I run a marketing psychology room along with a lovely lady called Natasha Vidori Canini. So please, if anyone's on Clubhouse and you'd like to come along, you'd be more than welcome to come along to the room to hear us talk about how we can build and develop our marketing ability using psychological techniques. The other room that I run is called Get Psychology Smart. I run it with a guy, a really good friend of mine called Torbjörn Bengston from Insight Consulting. Torbjörn is an expert when it comes to psychometric testing. So he's a collaborator with Optitude. You know, we run a wide variety of, we run 2 rooms a week, one at 8 a.m. on a Monday morning, which tends to be quite relaxed and quite casual. And we talk to people about a whole range of psychological issues. On a Wednesday at 6 p.m., we focus on a particular area. So right now we're doing a series that's all about personality. We're going through the big 5 personality traits. If you like this sort of thing, come along and check us out.
Yeah, highly recommend Simon's Clubhouse rooms. Okay, thanks for being my interviewee again today.
Hey, absolute pleasure. Thanks anytime, Mona. Pleasure to be with you.
All the best.
Likewise. Thanks, Mona.
Sure. Okay, thanks very much.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.